Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show with Aditya, India's number one podcast, with India's number one host, Aditya, in association with Dusra.net, the number one website in sports, education, and entertainment. If there is one good news as we proceed towards the final stages of the World Cup, there would be no more rains. We are only 9 days away from the main event of this tournament. Three of the four teams have already qualified for the semi finals, and the fourth team will be decided by tonight. So, who will win the World Cup? That's not for me to decide nor to predict. All the four semi finalists are equally capable of winning the World Cup, and that is how a tournament gets exciting. If we look at all the four teams closely, neither of them has any advantage over the other as they are equal in every aspect, that is, batting, bowling, and fielding, as well as captaincy. They also have similar weaknesses, though there will be a few who will not agree with me. They might just give the edge to England and Australia and put New Zealand and India as the two fringe teams as of the four semi finalists. If that's the case, then I disagree. One might just want to give Australia a chance. Why? Because of what has happened over the past 1 year, considering the ball tampering incidents and the suspension of two players and their sentimental and romantic return, and how Australia have the champions advantage at this point, while others will put their money on England, and we all know why.
That's a big six. That's a huge six out of the ground. Don't fetch that one down the road.
This happens every time England goes into the field. Yes, they have changed their attitude by adapting to the one day game, but still they have their weaknesses like the other three teams, and we all know what that is. Now, you all must be wondering, I keep talking about the weaknesses. That is a negative term. Why am I so focused on this? Why don't I talk about the strengths? Well, I will talk about the strengths which right now are universal. Let's substitute the word weakness with what the four teams need to improve so as to get the World Cup trophy in their hands. The openers of all the four teams have done their job by having a partnership. And then, if you are 230 overs, we expect the team to score at least 350 and beyond. But that hasn't happened so far. My recommendation would be not to think about 350. It's not going to happen. Let's take a few examples. Since India's middle order has been targeted for not getting the momentum and collapsing in the final 20 overs, this just didn't happen with one team, it happened with all the teams. England and India have two of the best fast bowling all-rounders in Stokes and Pandya, followed by Jimmy Neesham and Colin the Groundhog, because these four individuals have done what they are supposed to do, but Australia's Marcus Stoinis has failed. But the common thread is that neither of the four teams are going to chase well. They haven't done that, and that is going to be a big factor in this particular World Championship. And another common thread is that people are bored of the World Cup or the sport overall. Though I believe that this is a personal opinion. It's not the sport which is boring. It's our obsession to cling on to the past that makes a sport boring or interesting. With statistics becoming such an important part of our lives and the way it has penetrated sports, yes, that is how the sport has become boring, not the players playing it. In every field, statistics has become such a benchmark for one's greatness or average performances. The fact that we make everything about numbers is a worrying trend. But let's get more specific and into details. India needing 340 to win, and Dhoni batted slowly and everybody was baffled as if he had committed a crime. Twitter was used as some kind of a taking out your frustration device, and most people actually fell for it. We believed it. We were gullible enough to believe that Dhoni was batting slow. Okay, he was, and everybody on Twitter went after him as if he had done something so enormously villainous. They have anyways been questioning this guy for the past 4 years. And then rumors began spreading that India was losing deliberately so that Pakistan would not reach the semi-finals. So yes, that is what Twitter does to you. We can say anything we want without any verification and nobody will question it. And then a few commentators who were average players themselves, in fact, I would say way below average, forget records and statistics. They did not even deserve a place in the team. And I will not name these players, but those who are smart enough will decipher it on their own. But these individuals were lucky to get away because there was no Twitter, no Facebook, and no such social insulting media. And also because the commentators during their time were much more mature and refrained from such direct insults. Especially because those commentators were trained in broadcasting and the current commentators just walk in without any knowledge of being ethical. They would have never used terms like bits and pieces. And one of these commentators was an Indian commentator, in fact, the best Indian commentator, Ravi Shastri. And after John Wright and Gary Kirsten, he is the best coach so far. We've had some coaches in the interim, but these three coaches are the only coaches in my book. If coaches are an important element to the team, but this guy has left such a void in the commentary box that it will be difficult to fill his shoes. And unlike the current commentators, I am training myself, and one day I will be there and they will not be able to counter me at all. Even the newspapers and the other media has started feeding on the negative comments by such commentators. They are lapping it up, and without being judicious and seeing that if these comments or these statements have any meaning, they just publish it. So they also have to change their attitude. It has nothing to do with present times or past times. It has everything to do with what is the right thing and the wrong thing to say. Well, the pre-2000 era, the Indian team used to lose every day, all the time, against all the countries. Well, that is not what is happening right now. Twitter, Instagram, etc. doesn't give you a pass. It doesn't allow you to just say anything without thinking. There are going to be no more surprises in this particular edition as we go into the final stages. There are some who would be asking the question as to why Friday, which was essentially reserved for education and entertainment, I have suddenly started talking about this particular World Cup. Well, it's one of the last Fridays, I can tell you that. Post World Cup, we'll be going back to a normal routine as always. And being the producer, director, and the writer of this show, I think I have the right to have a few changes and look at what individuals want to do. The strengths of the three teams, as is the case, is their opening batsmen and the bowlers. And despite all that has happened, I still hold India's number 4, 5, 6, and 7 as the better combination than the rest of the teams. Even if some individuals will object that England has Butler and Stokes, Australia has Maxwell and Carey, and New Zealand has the two all-rounders in Neesham and Grandholm, along with the left-arm spinning all-rounder in Mitchell Santner. Yes, despite me being an Indian or not, that is not the case. But I find Pant, Pandya, Dhoni as the more proficient and skilled hitting combination. Despite the whole stories surrounding Dhoni's failed attempts to hit sixes at every ball. So my team for the semi-finals and the final league match against Sri Lanka would be Rahul, Rohit, Kohli, Pant, Pandya, Dhoni, Jadeja, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Chahal, Bumrah, Shami. And apart from Dhoni, Jadeja has also become the target of a few jealous individuals. A certain bits and pieces commentator called Jadeja India's best left-arm spinner since Ravi Shastri and Yuvraj Singh a bits and pieces bowler. And if records is the way to go, well, we all know Jadeja is the best. And if there are other things to consider, he is a very good batsman and he is one of the best fielders in the team since the time of Mohammad Kaif and Yuvraj Singh along with Suresh Raina. And as far as commentary goes, that is what separates ordinary individuals from the great ones. Even Mark Nicholas, whom I respected a lot, his commentary has also gone down in a huge manner. One of the reasons could be the partners he has in the commentary box. He was a different person when he had Ravi Shastri, Tony Greig, Richie Beno, Bill Lawry with him. And now when he has quote unquote inexperienced people as far as broadcasting goes, he has to change his tone. But since there is no criteria and qualification for selecting commentators, this is what we have and we have to deal with them. I won't be as flexible and as easygoing like the current broadcasters, and I have a very stringent and strict criteria of choosing experts in their particular field, especially commentary and sports. And once again, the question arises, who will win the World Cup? And I will reiterate my point that it is not for me to say or predict. The strengths, the weaknesses of all the teams who have qualified for the semi-finals are at par, and no team has any advantage over the other. Nor will it boil down to the oft-quoted word pressure, as this word pressure is now a cliche and redundant. Education systems all over the world, the more we think we are progressing, the more I think we are stagnating and not moving. CGPA, percentage, merits, that is what rules. First, we want a good public school education or a private school education. Then we want to get into the prestigious colleges. And this is universal, not limited to one country. Since we have developed this theory that schools do not give the lessons required to get into a good college, therefore we resort to private tuitions or public tuition. This results in stress, though I do not know what the word stress implies and how did it come about except in the subject of physics. And for us, the solution to everything is artificial intelligence. Since we have labeled school classroom teaching as traditional and stagnated, and our blindness towards artificial intelligence, which is still vague in all aspects, our limited understanding of artificial intelligence is also a big hurdle. Since time is such a key element in our lives and with limited duration of classes, we welcome artificial intelligence, that is these learning apps, to take over so that students can learn on their own. But is it so? We use words like interactive, universal and unlimited to defend artificial intelligence in every field. And then suddenly come a group of people who see this as emerging into social isolation. This basically means that as far as education goes, we don't trust the teachers to explain every concept. Well, the job of the teacher is not to explain every concept. They can only give you an idea, and the rest is for the students to go forward and do their research, but not necessarily on learning apps or through these interactive media. And this is where there is a stumbling block, a vicious circle. Students somehow are able to get 99% overall. So universities exploit this by having a cutoff of such enormous proportions. It's ironic that I have had my experience with artificial intelligence, meaning using such interactive videos and similar devices to learn more about a subject when the teacher leaves it for us to decipher the particular subject and its concepts. But for some purists, that would not be called artificial intelligence. In fact, even the definition of artificial intelligence leaves a lot of gaps. I used to have DK Multimedia CDs. Yes, CDs. A shock for most people who don't even know what a CD looks like. Yes, I had those CDs of different subjects like I love physics, I love maths, the world explorer, and I learned a lot. And for me, if I knew the term artificial intelligence back then, I would label that as artificial intelligence. And yet, I was not addicted like we fear children would be addicted to computers and electronic devices today. This is where parents and administration need to come to a decision. And the universal truth is, children do not even go to schools. Since the school do not cater to the curriculum of competitive and entrance exam, and the tuition centers have conned us that they do cater, though I doubt the teachers who are part of these tuition centers, do they have the experience? Are they trained in the subject, or have they just walked inside and become teachers without any formal training? And even the word formal training can get a lot of eyebrows raised. Can we deny employment to someone who has knowledge of the subject but doesn't have training how to teach the subject? Will it be anathema? How do we balance qualification and training and other aspects? How do you exactly view an experienced person, especially in academics, or someone who is training us? Are we so overawed by them that we take what they say as the final word and we do not have any questioning abilities? We fear them so much. And if we ask them questions, are we questioning their knowledge of the subject which they have dealt with for a longer period of time. This is exactly where the balance needs to lie, and this is what we are lacking instead of building castles in the air and worrying about how artificial intelligence will impact or revolutionize education or other subjects. We need to be smart as to how we deal with such situations and not let the flood of artificial intelligence, which we do not yet understand fully, sweep us away. It's important to understand that school is more than just going for classes, passing from one class to another, but that is not the case. The more we try to change, the more we remain the same. Till the time examination systems remain, education or other things cannot evolve. Till the time we are worried about if students are able to read and write in a particular class of a particular age, even if that subject is not of their interest, we cannot progress. An enrollment ratio in schools and its higher percentage is not the answer for higher literacy. Right to education cannot become a gun on your head. This particular aspect has to be dealt with in a very sensitive manner. Working for someone else is not the solution to one's progress. That cannot be the reason. One has to understand that there is more to than just worrying about having a job or not. And even if one is an entrepreneur like me, how does one decide what is or who is a successful entrepreneur? Like in sports, if you have a higher average, in the case of a batsman, you are a good batsman. If in the case of a bowler, you have a lower average, you are a great bowler. If you have 99%, you are smart. And if you earn a certain amount, a certain benchmark which has been set, and I question that benchmark, then you are a successful person. Eventually, it comes down to the number games, the branding, and other aspects. And we need to move away from such trends. I hope you enjoyed the two special sections of this particular broadcast. I will be back next week. Till then, have a great weekend and enjoy the rains which have finally come to Delhi. And after the relentless heat wave, will we have the infrastructure to manage such torrential rains? Well, that is something which we shall talk about next Friday. So if you want to be a part of my show, please send your valuable suggestions and send your recordings on topics ranging from sports, education and entertainment on the email ID aditya_the_writer@gmail.com. That is aditya_the_writer@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to this episode. Please like and subscribe to my Facebook page and YouTube channel and stay tuned for the next episode.